So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. This is episode 320, season 8.
Walkie Talkies explode, 19 people in space, oldest tree on Earth speaks, SpaceX breaking records, laws, and dark side of the moon, dirt.
That's right. So I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast. If you're your very first time tuning in, we're glad you're here. If you are a continuous listener, we very much appreciate you.
Yes.
Yes. So anyway, there's a couple different things you can do to support the podcast if you'd like. We do have a pretty stout internet presence. We're available everywhere you want to listen to us. And we also have Facebooks, Instagrams, TikToks. What else? YouTubes, if you want to listen to the podcast using YouTube. We are hashtag listenable.
Yeah.
What else? Oh, and we have a we have a toll-free telephone number. If you're one of those old geezers like myself, who's like, I'm going to call them and tell them exactly what I think they should know or do. You can leave us a message if you like. It's a Roswell area code.
That phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
That's right. So anyway, at the CreepGeeks Podcast, we do like to talk about stuff that we find to be interesting, and a lot of times it's paranormal news, weird stories, stuff like that, and including some of our adventures or experiences that we have, and we broadcast this stuff to you from deep in the mountains of western North Carolina. Underground bunker type action.
Okay.
Yeah. So don't go bother looking for us because you won't find us. Just saying. Conspiracies run rampant these days. Rampant, I tell you. Okay, so anyway, we're going to move into the podcast. Just to let you know, I'm all sugared up on some coffee.
Okay.
So it's pretty good. It's a 3-in-1 coffee.
Cool.
Because that way, if we ever have to flee for whatever reason, I can grab 3-in-1 coffee. It includes things like fake creamer, fake sugar, and instant coffee in a convenient little sachet. Or sachet, if you're trying to spell it. Right? And it makes 5.3 fluid ounces, so you got to use 2. Mm-hmm. So, because it's all about the milliliters and junk like that. Nobody cares about that. I want to know what it is in ounces, pounds, feet, miles.
No.
Yes.
Okay.
Freedom measurements. I'm not paying per liter for gasoline. That's suckers. Yeah. Suckers pay liters. Oh, you got how many liters equals a gallon? Like 4. And they're paying like $5 for a liter.
Gosh.
So, you can try to prove me wrong. It doesn't matter. I know what's up. I've been to Europe. I just can't make this mic stand tight. Maybe it's time to spend more than $7 on it.
I thought wasn't that 2 years ago where we spent $14.99?
Oh, yeah, that's true. But that was for 2. Because they were on sale.
Okay.
Stuff. So speaking of things that you can do to support the podcast, the biggest thing is listen. But if you do like what you hear, you can like and subscribe and share whatever platform you're on. You can leave us a little rating if you want. It's all good. We accept only the finest 3 to 5 star quality reviews. So, yeah. I was going to talk about Good Pods, puts us in their like top 100, top 35, top 10 list and all that stuff, and I just forgot to put it in there. They do this every month, and they're like, hey, did you guys know that you're like top, whatever, 15 out of 100 of all-time greatest paranormal podcasts? I say, yes, you've told me this before. So, all right, so in our previous past 4 or 5 episodes, podcast episodes, we've been talking about like SpaceX and dropping space trash and that kind of thing on western North Carolina, right?
Yeah.
And then we also talked about a meteorite that was like allegedly crashed somewhere around here and that you can go out and look for it. Well, ever since then, I found some other things, right? Mm-hmm. Including space stuff that's pretty wide-ranging, but this article kind of grabbed me and I kind of looked at it. It's like you can watch a live stream of billionaires breaking space law. And I'm like, 2 things. I didn't realize there was space law. Uh-huh. And I didn't realize billionaires were breaking it. So, of course, I had to click on it. And this is talking about the civilian SpaceX capsule launch where they went up there in this little capsule, right? And it seemed like a whole bunch of stuff was happening all at space at the same time.
Yeah.
Including like 19 people in space, which is like a new record and all this crazy stuff. So I'm like, whoa. So when I looked into it, this is not new, but it was kind of new to me because they finally did it. So they launched. I'm trying to think of the name of the craft. It went right in my head. Anyway, so it was delayed twice, and then it finally launched, and it's Polaris Dawn.
Yeah. And
in this Polaris Dawn capsule, you had four people a couple billionaires and some SpaceX crew. And from reading and just doing a brief sort of glancing over this thing, these aren't just like regular people. People are like, oh, you put billionaires in space. Like one's a fighter pilot, all this crazy stuff. So these are like top tier people, right?
Okay.
And with Polaris Dawn, and what they did was they went out and they did a couple different things that was sort of notable. They got further away than any spacecraft since like the Apollo missions to the moon from Earth. And then they did a spacewalk. And so you had two guys and two ladies, so it's basically a mixed crew. And they did spacewalk, and they went out there and they sort of floated around for a little bit. They didn't go like all the way out and dangle with the umbilical and all this stuff, but they did it enough. And what struck me about it was I was looking at it, I'm like, these guys, they look like they're just wearing like the same suits that they wear when they launched, because SpaceX and the suits that they were using, they don't look like the bulky NASA astronaut suits, where they look like they can dive in the ocean. They just look like they're wearing clothes, just like, like motorcycle, leathers that you wear if you're going to race motorcycles, and they're white and they're black, and they've got the smaller helmets and all this other crazy stuff. And it got me looking at some of the things that we have with NASA. And when you compare like spacesuits and craft and that sort of thing, it's just no wonder that as a whole, NASA is just so far behind with everything. Mm-hmm. Our space program, our NASA space program sucks. It does. I mean, we've got all this stuff that's happening that we evidently we're not even part of. We can't even launch and retrieve our own people.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, man. And so it's kind of disheartening because I was born in 1971 and they were still sending people to the moon. We don't do that anymore.
Oh.
The shuttles are too expensive and everything is too expensive. We don't have the capability to build the machines necessary to tool everything to be able to put us on the moon. And like, why are we this far behind with it? So there's probably a couple different reasons. I like conspiracy theory. NASA's just a government front because we have our own space program, but we need to keep the eyes off of that, our secret space program. And we'll just like show everybody our trash. Hey, look at the garbage we got over here. While we're sending people to different dimensions and stuff using tortal drives and, liquid mercury vapor engines and all this crazy stuff. And we can travel to Mars in 2 minutes and all this jazz, right? We got space bases everywhere. That's kind of what I would like to think.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I don't know. So, evidently they were breaking space law. So even though they made history, becoming the first ever private citizens to conduct a spacewalk, but they also may have made history with another first, the first ever live stream of a space crime. I'm like, what? So I had to figure this out, and of course the article breaks it down for you, and this is IFL Science, and we put a link to everything we talk about in the show notes.
Yeah.
111 countries around the world have signed an outer space treaty.
Okay.
Which governs everything from like space exploration to who's responsible for the space junk, to even who owns like Neil Armstrong's poops in space.
Wait, I have to click on that. Now I have to figure that out.
Well, I didn't click on that because I was afraid it was going to be some kind of weird space stuff that I don't want my search history to,
Well, it takes you directly. It's at least on IFL Science. So, yeah. Oh, wow. On the moon, as well as several robots, some tardigrades, a family photograph, and maybe even some dinosaur remains, you will find 96 bags of human poo-poo.
That's right. And from that poo-poo, they can rebuild the human race. So what happens when we finally wipe ourselves out and a happy little alien race comes by and goes, oh my God, we have to fix them. We can recreate them.
Japanese researchers found that dried bacteria were able to survive for 3 years on the exterior of the ISS. While in 2017, Russian cosmonauts also found bacteria living on the outside of the ISS. So, living bacteria. Wow.
So, you're just proving that we literally don't know shit about space.
Pretty much, yeah. But this doesn't say who owns the space junk. Oh, so these things are kind of considered common heritage of humanity.
So when we go down the road and we see bags of trash on the side of the road where people that come and visit, and drive through places like the Blue Ridge Parkway and whip their stuff out the window. That's common heritage of humanity trash, or is that what that is?
Okay, so to give a positive example, when you go to Chaco Canyon or you go to the pueblos, like the ancient pueblos, like the Chaco ruins, and you see the pottery shards, and you see clusters of them in piles, that was a dump site. Like, their pottery broke, so they threw it away, and they threw it into piles.
Yes.
Those are now, well, they're not common heritage of all humanity. Currently, they're common indigenous heritage. Eventually, when we all start getting along a little better, it would be common heritage of humanity.
Very nice.
But 96 bags of poop is, I'm having a hard time.
Unlike like the Jamestown settlement when they were digging through the trash pits.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, we didn't find any leather, but we found lots of buckles and things like that.
Yeah.
When they were trying to figure it out. And the one person who kept saying, that's because they were eating each other. And they drummed him out of, like, they did not, no.
Why?
How dare you? And it's true, though.
Why are there no pet remains after the following year?
It was like, huh. And they really didn't have it. So when I was like going through school and we learned about Jamestown and 1613, 1619, and 1631 and all that stuff, is like, they didn't say anything like that because, it wasn't cool. But they also taught you about the witch of witch duck and stuff like that, witchcraft. That was like Halloween time. You learned about the witch of witch duck and all the like spooky stuff that went along with colonial life, like the Jersey Devil and that sort of thing. They don't really talk about any of that stuff. But yeah, there you go. If you didn't know, one of our first established settlements in Jamestown, Virginia, which happened way before Plymouth Rock and the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and all that stuff. They sent the wrong people. Yeah. They sent bankers and bakers and stuff like that, right? And they should have been sending farmers.
And frontiersmen.
Yeah, people that like know how to work the land because they didn't, and they wound up starving because they basically made things worse when they had indigenous people trying to help them.
Yeah.
They got all worried about it, and things went bad, and they got hungry, and they ate each other.
We rank number 15 in top 24 Bigfoot podcasts on Good Pods.
What?
Yeah.
Is this new? I think I sent you an email.
No, we actually.
I typically get an email while we went down. What were we before?
Oh, we were higher than that.
Oh.
But like I always.
Is this out of 16?
This is out of 24.
All right, we'll take it.
I'm just mad because like I'm not gonna say it, but some other podcasts that we know rank higher. So
well, they didn't last time, and you know what? They won't next time because this is a fantastic show.
But yeah.
We've already talked about breaking space law, space poop, who owns the space poop, how long bacteria can live in space, the first documented instance of cannibalism in the New World by English settlers, all sorts of stuff. I mean, where else can you get that? And it's free. It doesn't cost you anything at all. And if you go to Amazon and use our link that's in our show notes, we get a little kickback from that. It doesn't cost you anything at all.
Yeah.
See how I slipped in that little commercial like that? It's coffee. This we talked about 3-in-1 coffee that we're going to take in case things get bad and we have to leave. And the super cool spacesuits. So yeah, these spacesuits I thought were pretty interesting because they look like I would expect a spacesuit to look in 2024. I mean, they're not super bulky. You don't have to get in from the back or any of this stuff. And
yeah,
they got nice helmets. They have displays in them now. You can read stuff, like you see in the sci-fi shows, or you look at Iron Man. We had his little heads-up display inside his helmet. You could read all that stuff. They have that stuff now. It's all in the suit.
Yeah.
And we're just so far behind, as NASA is just so far behind. I'm beginning to wonder where. Anyway, so they're breaking space law by getting out there and doing this space walk. What are they going to do? Who's going to write them a ticket?
Apparently they can deny them the ability to take off and ground them for a while. Kind of like going back to last podcast episode where you were saying we have those people trapped in space. Why can't we just send SpaceX up there?
Right.
It's because, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to punish ourselves and punish them the opportunity to do good for humanity. Because, yes, everybody's, after billionaires right now and after certain entities. Well, this would be a good deed.
Yeah. Here's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. Say there was a crisis on the International Space Station and you had a rocket ready to go, or could be ready to go very quickly, right? Like through SpaceX. SpaceX is currently grounded, I think, until November. Do you think for 1 second that SpaceX would comply with the FAA and their ground notice saying that you're grounded, you can't fly? Or do you think they would launch and go get those people? What do you think would happen?
I don't know.
Oh, I know exactly what would happen.
You do?
Yeah. Elon Musk would be like, send it.
I hope so.
We'd have other government agencies that say, well, I guess you're going to die, bro. You're going to die because you're breaking. And that's part of the reason why we are where we are with just NASA in general and our space program. There's so many rules and regulations with everything that it's really stifling our growth. And all these conspiracy people out there are like, the reason why all this is happening is because the companies, corporations making money. There's all these other reasons to keep our own interest out of space, because those interests are being filled by other ways and other money to keep us out of space. So it behooves, it even goes to like Big Pharma, right?
But we
don't want to cure it. We want to treat it because we make more money treating, not curing, right?
The country chose to basically mush all these different entities together as NASA. And then they also chose to corporatize a lot of space research.
Yeah, I wonder why.
And now, we're upset about this, but then we're looking at it as, well, if you're going to corporatize it, then you need to loosen the restrictions. No. If you're going to turn this into some sort of like capitalist endeavor or commercial endeavor, then you should apply commercial law.
Yeah, you would think, but
why are you going to be so strict on space, but you're going to have 40 food recalls this summer?
Yeah.
Why
are you going to let medication that is bad for you go out there and say, we tested enough. It's fine.
If the big entity that's the government is making these decisions, then they need to be more uniform. Okay. Yeah. You're not going to prescribe people bad stuff or have 10 dog food recalls this year, but then say, oh, SpaceX, you have the ability to do all this fantastic stuff, but we're not going to let you.
Yeah, you're grounded. So,
And it's a combination of greed, capitalism, lobbying, Yeah. So, and regardless, I'm not entirely a fan of certain entities, but I am a fan of space.
Yeah, so, it's what gets us out there.
Yeah.
It's what separates us from the other monkeys and orangutans and primates and stuff. We can go to space. I used to say it was air conditioning. Right? What separates us from the animals is air conditioning and ice cream.
Yeah.
But, let's throw space in there. That's what separates us from all sorts. But, yeah, I do think that if it came down to a crisis situation and it was like a real, this International Space Station is coming down, they need to go get 8 people or whatever, that SpaceX would launch.
Yeah.
And they should. Because I do think a lot of people would, especially if it was successful. See, if it went bad, then it'd be like, well, there you go. You should have listened to the FAA, but you didn't, and look what happened. But if it went good, I think a lot of people would be like, hey, he's a space pirate.
Yeah.
Because that's really what those civilians were out there doing their thing. Because allegedly the way it works, and I didn't read too far into it because it was just making me angry, but the country of origin is supposed to be the one to enforce whatever infractions get broken.
Yeah.
Which is basically U.S. Come on. So these billionaires went up there and they did a spacewalk, and they're moving ahead. They could go to the moon faster because you can't even. The reason why I had to go get those people was because the government decided we're not going to use SpaceX. We're going to use I think it's Boeing. We're going to use Boeing, and we're going to send that capsule, Artemis Dawn or whatever dumb name it is, to the moon. It's going to take way longer, cost a ton more money, but that's what we're going to do. And they can't even bring back their own people. Their first real launch to put people and send them to the space station, they're still there, and they won't come back until November or December or something like that.
Boeing's in the middle of a huge strike.
There is a huge conspiracy with Boeing killing people. Just, whistleblowers are just magically showing up dead with Boeing.
They're reducing executive pay and furloughing non-union workers right now.
That's damage control.
They're putting tens of thousands of workers on furlough after a strike. Amidst the strike, they are going to continue furloughing despite the cash crunch that is currently happening.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if the only reason why they're going to be able to keep building this stuff and send people to the moon, allegedly, is because they knew that they were going to run out of money, and people that are floating it up and trying to bolster Boeing. Like, if we really had this contract, it'd really go a long way to keep us afloat. So I'm sure some lobbyists somewhere were like, you got to support this. This has got to happen. SpaceX is ready to roll, man. And as much as people don't like Elon Musk and everything, it seems to be making some progress.
1 day ago, a watchdog group just launched a FIA, Freedom of Information Act. Watchdog group launches legal probe into NASA emails over space czar Harris as astronauts continue to linger in orbit.
Harris.
Yeah.
Who is Harris? That's not Kamala Harris's husband, is it?
No.
That's close. We almost had a real conspiracy.
Oh, we're gonna stop with that because that is really going really far.
Yeah. They might be like, we're sorry, CreepGeeks, but you guys are not allowed to travel in space. Step over here for secondary aggressive genital petting as you go through TSA. Right. So anyway, we got some space pirates out there, these billionaires that are, and the thing is that with the billionaires, people are like, they just paid a bunch of money to fly.
Yeah.
When they did their first couple launches, the money was donated to charity, and the dude is putting money into the program, and he's like a real, not just a rich guy. I can't think of his name. But anyway. Yeah, they went out and did their space thing, did some walking. Right. Yeah. It's so to me they're space pirates, and I'm all for it. So good job, Polaris Dawn. They did their first commercial spacewalk. Did a little EVA. In the SpaceX Dragon. They were supposed to be up there for a week, so I'm not even sure if they're coming back or already back or what. I haven't really checked quite into it. So yeah, kind of crazy. So anyway, rolling back into the podcast.
Yeah.
19 people were in space at one time.
That's pretty cool.
That's a new record.
Yeah.
And so, according to space.com, new record, 19 people are orbiting Earth right now. And also, according to SpaceX.com, when you purchase through links on our site, we may earn an affiliate commission. Because you got to disclose that now, because I think it's the FCC will get you.
Oh, so 3 people launched towards the ISS on September 11th aboard the Russian Soyuz capsule.
Remember, 2 people got bumped.
Oh, yeah.
Because they got to, get to other 2 people.
So, this brings it, with the trio now in orbit, this brings a record of 19 people currently in orbit. The old record was set last year at 17. So.
Yeah. If you think about it, in 30 years, if things keep going the way they're going, it's going to be that won't be nothing. It'll be like, we got 2,500 people in space right now.
So, I don't know. When I thought 19, I was like, man, that's a lot of people. And then I got distracted at work because somebody was telling me that there was a major traffic incident towards Asheville. And it's actually delayed traffic by hours. And I just thought, 19 people, that's almost enough people to bump into each other in space. If you're right around, if you're in Earth's orbit, that is almost enough people to bump into each other within a reasonable amount of time. And by reasonable, I mean like 12 hours.
Yeah, it's a big place, but everybody's kind of close.
So could you...
close enough.
Could you imagine Earth orbit traffic? With the way every nation on the planet handles traffic.
Right now somebody's like, there's so much space in between, we'll never bump. But you can remember, everybody's traveling like 17,000 miles an hour. So, we can't even go down the road. Parking lot accidents at 5 miles per hour. Can you imagine?
Well, yeah, because I was like thinking space traffic. And then I thought of because the Grand Tour finally wrapped up and, they were showing scenes from some of their old shows where they were in other countries where traffic is insane,
Yeah.
And I'm just like, imagine if that happened to space.
It's going to happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
So you got 19 people in space. You got the Soyuz people, and then you got the International Space Station people, and then you've got the billionaires that are 4 people there, and then you've got the Chinese space station.
Yeah.
The Tianjong, I don't know how to say it, Tiangong, right? And there's I think there's 3 up there or 4 up there. And so it just sort of further cements China's got their own space station going on. We talked about that in the past, where Russia's going to start working with China because they don't want to deal with NASA and us just in general. They didn't like us anyway. That's fine.
Yeah.
China sent craft to the dark side of the moon, and the alien cities on the other side of the moon didn't do anything to them. They even brought back some dirt. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, I didn't either. I'm finding out all this stuff from European websites, like news websites. I don't really see hardly anything on our own websites about this unless you go to somewhere specific like space.com or whatever, right?
So I had to sit in a webinar this week, and it talked about having to go elsewhere for news and information because people's algorithms are still being determined partially by what people determine is the media that Americans should look at right now.
Yeah.
So this is coming from Scientific American. And the excuse is, well, these are niche interests. Space is now considered a niche interest. Right. Travel, which I'm in, is considered a niche interest, despite how much money travel brings in. So unless it's fashion or politics.
Or sports.
And even then, some sports is getting kicked to the wayside.
Well, I mean, if you look at Google Trends right now, it's all sports. And I could give a shit less about it. Because that's not what I'm looking for. It's like, and I can't even make it to where I don't want it. It's ridiculous because I had no idea that China brought some fresh samples from the lunar far side of the moon. It's
apparently too niche for people to care about.
Yeah. So Chang'e 6 spacecraft from China could solve a long-standing lunar mystery.
Huh.
Yeah. So they brought back a substantial piece of the moon, 2-kilogram chunk of rock and dust.
Wow.
That came out of the lunar crust, right, by Chinese Chang'e 6 lander, which touched down on the moon's surface a few weeks earlier, and it's basically stashed in a rocket launch, got shot back to the Earth, which is impressive if you think about it. And so those samples, they got launched from the surface of the lunar moon, and then it went up and it met up with the Chang'e 6 mothership in lunar orbit, and then it rode an Earth return module 380,000-kilometer journey home before it parachuted into Inner Mongolia for retrieval and study by eager scientists. Gosh. China could be on the moon in a year.
Yeah.
What are we doing? Because think about if they own that real estate. And, people joke around and say, well, all their space stuff comes from like AliExpress or Temu, right? Or Wish. But, man, if it's working, I mean, come on, it's ridiculous, right? And so the feat was much the same as the lunar sample return of Chang'e 5 mission in 2020. Except for one very important difference. This time, and for the first time ever, in fact, the material was from the moon's far side. So the dark side of the moon.
Yeah.
Which is always turned away from Earth. And so that required extra steps, such as using dedicated satellites in lunar orbit to relay communications.
Yeah.
So they had to put satellites to be able to bounce the signal around the dark side of the moon. So if there were like lunar bases and the alien race and all that stuff, I don't think they would let this stuff happen. So I think they may have inadvertently debunked, as far as what I can see, and I'm not an expert by any means, the idea, that there's aliens on the other side of the moon, because I don't think they would let satellites up there. To kind of let things go on. So anyway, so they found some stuff from the dark side of the moon, or they brought some stuff back, some samples from the dark side of the moon, and those samples are different than what's on the Earth-facing side of the moon that we see.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to think. They're trying to say that, there's a difference probably because of the tidal pull and everything else and all that stuff, but I was trying to find some of the things that they said it was made of, but one of the things I remember them saying is that some of the material is, of course, from the moon, and some of it was from somewhere else, and some of it they just don't know what it is. But they released what the stuff was really quick.
And then having said,
Like, hey guys, here's what we got.
yeah,
And you know what? The first thing I thought of, why would you do that? Why would you not spend all the time to really investigate what it is and say, hey, we'll let you know what we found. It may take us months. But they just went ahead and say, here's what it is. This is what it is. Because they know something.
or maybe they realize the wealth of data it is, and that they're hoping for maybe like almost like how SETI was a community effort, you know.
You're so optimistic.
I am. I
And
really am.
This is all money, man. They're straight up. They know there's some good stuff. This is a diversionary tactic.
I don't think so.
I bet if they start accelerating their if they accelerate their launch to the moon and try to put base and everything on the moon. I think I even read an article about it where they're trying to, we're going to be on the moon and we're sending stuff to establish a base on the moon. If it gets accelerated, then they have found something that makes it worth it. Remember, we were talking about helium-3.
Yeah.
So if the dark side of the moon is full of this stuff, it would behoove them to get there faster.
Is it though? Did they find it?
They just said they found some stuff real quick, like.
Okay. Well, they also found some interesting facts that, you know, like you were talking about the tidal pool and stuff, like the pull of the tides and gravity and stuff. Well, they found that the far side's crust was actually 20 kilometers thicker on average than that of the near side. On top of that, the best description that they could give of the far side is, unlike like this cratered mess, you know, that's very distinct on the facing the near side, the far side resembles like rugged highland with sprawling sea areas and shrunken just to like with smaller, darker scattered spots compared to how the face of the moon looks to us. So it's very different over there, and it's probably overwhelming to try to research that side, considering this is the first time somebody's really started to successfully study it. So, yeah.
I think they found some good stuff. And the reason why I'm not going to put a link to that in the show notes is for two reasons. The first reason is I can't find it, and the second reason is that it's one of those where if you don't, you got to click it. Yeah. You got to let us. You have an ad. We've detected an ad blocker, and I'm just like, I don't have time. And you know, because like,
that's funny because like IFL Science that we just talked about, you can see it in the show notes. All those pages have decided to just stop working for me.
Yeah, so, of course, that's what they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it has some mystery material in the samples that went back, but they came out with hey, here's what we found real quick. I'm a little leery of that. I would not be surprised. So I'm gonna keep a note somewhere that says, hey, keep checking to see how accelerated the space program becomes. The lunar missions that they're doing or will be doing. So, yeah, kind of crazy.
Yep.
So speaking of crazy, I had a little blurb in here that we should talk about why we're so far behind in space, but we don't need to talk about that because I think we've been doing that. I've been just grumbling about it the whole time. Let's talk about something that's really important, and this is probably going to lend itself to the reason why we're not so far ahead in space anymore, and space isn't that important. It's stuff like this. Did you know that Trader Joe's viral mini tote bags are returning soon? So evidently Trader Joe's has these little like grocery sacks that people like to get.
Yeah. And
they're, oh my God, you got to get it's a little mini tote sack. Trader Joe has a viral mini tote bags and they're coming back. And of course, when you see the little video clip, it's people running in there and grabbing these things off a pallet. And they come in different colors like blue, green, red, and yellow. And they're just snatching them up. Like these little canvas tote bags. And full disclosure, I tried to buy you one. I'm like, I'm going to get Omi the viral Trader Joe's mini tote sack because that would give her some kind of cred with somebody who knows what it is, right?
Yeah.
And I can't find them. I think you can only get them in store. I didn't because we don't really have a Trader Joe's around here that we could go to. And I don't know if you could just order stuff online like you can with like Walmart.
One of our friends and listeners, I believe she drives like to Charlotte to go.
Well, nobody who's listening to the podcast who doesn't live in North Carolina knows that Charlotte's about 100 miles away from us.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So basically, customers stormed the stores and were willing to wait in long lines for a chance to get their hands on one of these bags. The simplistic design and $2.99 made it worth getting, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a canvas tote bag. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, I would use that.
Okay.
I don't know what I'd use it for, but I'm like, yeah, I would buy that if we went in Trader Joe's and I seen that little tote sack for $3. It's canvas for one. I'd probably put some beeswax on it with some coconut oil, mineral oil, and waterproof it and junk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you could put mushroom stuff in it. You know, it'd be kind of cool, right?
Well, it depends. Because, like, I can't figure it out from the photo, like, how big or small it is. I mean, maybe I could fit some stuff in there.
Oh, of course. Yeah, you could.
I was thinking it was, like, super small and, like, it would be a cool little...
No, you could put, like, books and stuff in it. Even though it says mini, it's a good size.
I was hoping it was, like, smaller so that, you know, Pepper
like
could play with
size?
it. Like, Pepper could have a little prop for some of her videos.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what she's looking like. She needs a tote bag.
She does.
No, she doesn't.
She does.
So yeah, that's part of the reason. In other words, the interest that we have for things that are important are just all over the place.
Yeah.
Tumbler cups, tote bags, dumb stuff like that. When we should be going, hey man, let's go to the moon and get some helium-3, or maybe find some kind of like alternative fuel source that could power the planet and eliminate nuclear and petrochemicals and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
See, because I would be for that. If the solution for power and requirements that we need, you know, to power things it made sense instead of like electric vehicles, which don't make sense because it relies on other stuff to make electricity happen, I would be all for that.
Okay.
You know, like the Fusion Master or whatever that was on the back of the DeLorean for, there's a lot of people lining up. Highly anticipated. Oh, and Trader Joe's does not approve of totes being resold. What are they going to do? Once I own these totes, it's on me. If I want to resell them on Amazon and get $500 for a $2.99 tote, I'm certainly going to.
Well, see, so this goes to the whole, they're probably putting this statement out to nip it and stop any speculation that happened during the whole Stanley Cup fiasco with Target. Because Target, when those limited edition colors came out that were like pinks and, I don't know, a collab with somebody, everybody was sharing TikToks and videos, and it was on the news, like fights breaking out, violence, and just theft. Like certain employees of some place were like, oh, these are damaged.
Yeah.
And then just immediately thrown them in their car.
This is like the great Cabbage Patch incident.
Yeah.
Cabbage Patch Kids incident of the 80s.
Yeah. So, and, you know, they're putting it out there because I guess I do want to believe that Trader Joe's is a decent company, you know?
Yeah, they're just saying that they don't want you to resell them because that's not not what it's all about. And I get it,
Yeah.
but there's nothing they can do to enforce. It's like Walmart has a knife.
But they're also showing that they're not setting a precedent, because other companies, when they've had these rushes on products, have been like, oh, well, that's great, you know?
Yeah, but really what it is them just saying that this is being done without our approval or authorization and outside controls of our quality-minded supply chain. They're just trying to say, hey, we're not behind it. We don't want to, say, don't hold us accountable.
Yeah.
So, because like Walmart has a knife it looks like a Benchmade knife, because Benchmade, I guess, lost their patents on some stuff, and they put out this $9.99 knife.
Yeah.
And a lot of knife people in the knife world were like, it's trash, without even ever having seen it or held it. I bought one. And I'm like, this thing for $10, I should have bought 10 of these because they're totally worth the money. And now those same knife people are making YouTube videos about it, going, like I seen a couple of them that said, I was wrong. This knife is amazing for $10. And guess what? You can't get them anywhere. And there's been reports of when they show up in a store, like online or whatever, that people are buying the entire thing. Like one guy bought, 35 knives as soon as it became available. And what are they doing? They're reselling them on eBay for like $25.
That's exactly what I just did.
Yeah. Because I'm like, man, I should buy another one because it's a great knife.
$19, buy it now, $25.99.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically double and triple the cost. And the thing about it is that knife may never come back.
Yeah.
Because it's made by Ozark Trail and it's got a D2 blade and blah, 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 and all the knife stuff that some people care about. But it's a great little pocket knife. And I'm like, man, I like it. So I got one. I don't know where it is, but I got one. It's really bugging me too. Because I dyed it. I dyed the scales from the weird pumpkin orange, which if it was a brighter orange, I'd have been fine with it, but it was kind of a dingy looking orange, to a nice, delicious chocolate brown. If you unzip that case and find my knife, I'm gonna smash my computer screen.
Nope, luckily it's just batteries and a microphone cover.
Great. So the audio recorder is not in there. So that's just another thing that I need to look for, right? Golly, man. But see, that's what I thought. I thought maybe I put it somewhere. If it's in that case, I'm going to smash my computer screen.
Are we going to end the podcast early?
It's just going to be a buzz. Like, we're going to play some music, right? Some like hold music, whatever. Please remain on the line. Your call is important to us. So I can't find it. I don't know where it is, but yeah. That's probably the reason why the space program sucks is because we care about like totes.
Because we have Gen Xers in charge of space.
So,
they can't figure out what they did with their rockets.
Why are you blaming it on Gen X? It's your generation. It's like, oh my God, have you seen the tote bag? Have you seen it? It's $2.99. Y'all are the ones that are the hard problem here, not us. Because the joke's on you because Gen X doesn't care.
You misplace rockets and knives.
So, yeah. And what do you guys do? Misplace money and complain that you can't buy a house.
Hey, that's not our fault.
That's the problem.
That's the previous generation using all the toilet paper on the roll and leaving 1 square for us. That's what that is.
At least we thought enough to leave you something, right? Gen X people got houses.
Yeah.
And here's where it's going to anger somebody. And we did it making less money.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was minimum wage? $3.35 when I started working. What is it now? Like $15?
Hey.
Hey, what? And that's minimum wage because as you heard, I did not call it a living wage because minimum wage was never established to be a living wage. Mm-hmm. Minimum wage was established so they can figure out how much to tax you and to make sure you got paid the minimum. See, the way I was taught growing up, the minimum wage, that's just to make sure you didn't get paid $1 an hour and that you shouldn't live on a minimum wage. That's just the starting point.
The lowest wage permitted by law or by a special agreement, such as one with a labor union. It is the lowest remuneration. Oh, my goodness.
How much? You make more than that.
Yeah. Employees
remuneration?
Remuneration.
Anyway,
yeah,
the minimum that you can be.
That employers can legally pay their employees. The price floor below which employees may not sell their labor.
Yes. Wow. It is not a living wage. It's never been set out to be a living wage, ever. And if you look, there's a sort of a weird thing between minimum wage and Social Security numbers. People are like, well, Social Security, I think if I remember correctly, the way I was taught by an angry high school teacher, mm-hmm. Social Security numbers were put in place not to make sure you got benefits from the U.S., right, from the government. It was to basically know how they can tax you.
Why can I not say this word?
That's your tax ID number right there. Social Security number.
Remuneration.
Yeah. Anyway, move back into the podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
So in some dystopian news, I put this in here because this recently happened in the past couple of days. It sort of freaked me out, right? Mm-hmm. This is sci-fi espionage stuff that you see in movies that you never really thought would happen, and it is totally happening.
Okay.
So I'm kind of skipping over the ghost stuff. We'll talk about ghost stuff in just a second. So in the Middle East, right, there's a new phase of war going on where devices are exploding.
Okay.
It started a couple days ago with pagers, where like a crazy number of pagers just started exploding all at the same time. And it was basically designed to take out the owners of those pagers.
Yeah.
Terrorists, like Hezbollah. So somebody got a hold of all these pagers and made them to where they could explode. So they basically sent a signal and blew up these pagers. So whoever was holding the pager, it blew up, right? Mm-hmm. And then today, it's got expanded to Walkie Talkies.
Oh.
So whoever's holding Walkie Talkies could be exploded. Like the Walkie Talkie itself would explode.
Yeah.
Because a long time ago, it was, the terrorists were figuring out, whatever side you're on, whatever, right? That, hey, can't use GPS phones because we can be tracked. Can't use cell phones because we're being tracked.
Okay.
So they stopped using those. So started using pagers. So now pagers are exploding. And walkie-talkies are exploding. So a signal can be sent to explode these devices.
Yeah.
This is like CIA sci-fi war stuff, right? It's crazy. It's like you never would think something like that would happen. And I understand that you've seen like television shows and movies and stuff where, they've got like a cell phone strapped to a bomb, and if there's just a signal, it's going to blow up. And I get all that stuff. But this is like in a pager, in a cell phone, something small,
Yeah.
in a walkie-talkie. But it's a coordinated thing where one signal gets sent and like 2,500 of these things just blow up.
Okay.
That's freaking scary. Can you imagine if this signal goes out and they say, hey, let's target all the iPhones? You know how many dumb people are going to die because of that? And we're in there too because we're using these stupid iPhones.
Yeah.
Because it's using a signal, right? So what? That's crazy to me. I don't know. Because they send a push message to go to all these phones, right? And then in there somewhere has like a command detonation command, and then boom, it just go off.
Yeah. That's
nuts, man. That's a type of warfare we haven't seen. We're kind of used to warfare like drones and munitions and stuff like that and spy stuff. This is like on a mass scale.
It is.
So the type of coordination it took to make this happen, to grab, 500 pagers or whatever it was, and then modify them to do that. And then like all the cell phones and walkie-talkies or whatever to modify them to do all that. And then put them back to where they're being delivered. Like, I don't know. It's kind of like this had to have been put in place a long time ago. I don't think you could just do this real quick. Like,
so you're saying the code or the technology, it's taken a while. I mean, because honestly, when I read this,
if you had to intercept like 500 pagers or whatever, and you had to modify them and put explosive components in them and then put them back and then make sure they went to the people that you wanted to blow up.
I mean, is the definition of the blow up like strong enough to like seriously injure
it's
in
killing
every
people.
Single case?
Well, and not every single case, because if you didn't have it in your pocket, if it was sitting on your nightstand and it blew up and you're in the bathroom, no big deal, but it's enough to cause harm, and it killed some people.
Okay.
It's a terroristic attack on terrorists. See, because terrorism really just depends on what side you're looking at it, right? Mm-hmm. On what side you're on with this whole thing. It's crazy. I mean, can you imagine, though, say if somebody made a shipment or intercepted a shipment somehow and did this and modified them and then sent that shipment on into Amazon, and then you got people buying this stuff. It could happen on a crazy scale somewhere like here in the U.S. where you could basically, because Amazon is full of resellers. Like we could take a box of books and send them up to Amazon, and they'll be shipped, packed, and sent off to the people that buy the books from us. Do you think everything gets examined with a fine-tooth comb? They're not going to open up a clamshell package pager and see if it's okay. Do you think they don't scan everything for explosives? There's no way they could do that. And so what if somebody grabbed found a cache of 500 pagers and modified them and then sent them somewhere like Amazon and just anybody buys them?
Okay, so before we speculate too much and give too many ideas to people, I do want to say that everything you're describing and what's in this article is just way too reminiscent of like some spy novels and stuff like that. And I'm talking, like you were saying, like this took a while. These are spy novels that came out like Jack Bauer type stuff like a decade ago.
More than that, longer than that.
Yeah, so why is it just now starting to happen?
Right.
I don't
know. Why hasn't it been done?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure maybe it's been done before, right? But this is like public. I mean, you could have a cell phone or a radio or a pager blow up and take out one person, right?
Yeah.
Where you got somebody sitting there and they watch them and they press a button, boom, it goes up. This is like just coordinated, just went out like over an email or something. They sent them a message and blew up like 500 of these things, 3,200, whatever it is. It's a crazy number. And then walkie talkies too. So you got coordinated effort with walkie talkies.
Yeah.
Trying to take out leadership. It's crazy. And I don't know, man. It's kind of scary because, I mean, everybody uses cell phones, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't there a movie? Kingsman movie, right? When the first one, you had Samuel L. Jackson, where he did some kind of brainwave thing with cell phones, and satellite signal came down and started blowing people's heads up. Stuff like that. I'm trying to think. But yeah, I just thought that this level of technology and this type of attack is crazy. So that's in our dystopian news stuff, where pagers and pagers and handheld radios are exploding. So tech is killing people.
Oh, The Signal, 2007, a horror film told in 3 parts from 3 perspectives, in which a mysterious transmission that turns people into killers invades every cell phone, radio, and television.
Oh, that's different, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I think it was...
That's more Manchurian Candidate type stuff, where you get to hear the signal and, or somebody walks up and gives you something to activate you. Like the flowers are green and the grass is blue. You're like, now I'm a killer, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it was the Kingsman, the Secret Service movie.
Yeah, it was the first one.
In 2014.
Where the lady had a little sword feet or whatever it was.
I don't know.
So, yeah. And I think it was the first one where Samuel L. Jackson was a bad guy and he didn't have blonde hair. Usually when Samuel L. Jackson's a bad guy, he has blonde hair. Or white hair. Yeah. So, yeah, that's in our dystopian news segment for you. And if you're still listening to the podcast, we very much appreciate it. But we're going to roll into something that's just as crazy. Now, this is something that we've talked about a little bit. And we actually talked about this 2 days ago, about how European food can be considered better in a lot of ways because of all the ultra-processed stuff that's in our trash food that we're currently eating.
Yeah.
And not even like 2 years ago, putting out an article saying that ultra-processed food's bad for you.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? Evidently, now it's not.
Oh.
There's another news article that came out. Evidently, somebody paid somebody something, right, to say that, wait a minute, these 8 ultra-processed foods they're now good for you.
Huh.
So I was like, what? And see, this is a fight. It's hard to find stuff that you can eat that's not bad for you because everything is bad for you.
Okay.
And, we've all sort of seen like where people have like, I went to Europe and I ate the entire time I was there and I didn't gain a pound. And you got European people come to the U.S. and are like, I was in America for 7 days and gained 32 pounds and all the food tasted amazing though. So evidently there's 8 ultra-processed foods that you can now eat guilt-free after this groundbreaking study.
I just read this, and 2 of them I wouldn't consider ultra-processed.
See? And that's why they had to put this article out.
Okay.
So if you're wondering about these 8 ultra-processed foods, we'll run through them real quick. Baked beans. Because some of these certain types of supermarket baked beans can be considered ultra-processed due to their high content of modified starches and fructose syrups. However, they're also can be a good source of fiber and protein. Yeah. So they're saying that the good outweighs the bad. The fiber and protein takes it out of the bad ultra-processed category. And you see what they're doing here, right?
Yeah.
If it's got some good stuff in it, then you shouldn't think of it as being garbage. And it's going to be okay. And I'm like, hold on a minute. You still got good stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if half of it can kill you, but the other half is good for you, doesn't that equal 0? Or is that what you're looking at it? Half is bad, half is good, so it really has no effect. So that's not how any of this works. Tomato-based sauces are now considered good for you. Even though they have high fructose corn syrup and all the stuff that's ultra-processed and bad, but since they have antioxidants and minerals and vitamins, they're like, it's trash, but it's got good stuff, so it's not as trash as you thought it was, so you can eat it.
Okay.
Even though it's ultra-processed, we're going to let this one slide. Soup.
Okay.
Yeah. Soups, even though they have a bunch of garbage in them and stuff, as long as they got vegetables in them and, maybe less salt, then even though it's ultra-processed, it's still good. Peanut butter. Peanut butter goes back and forth between being good and bad.
Yeah. So, my dad went through a phase in the late 90s, mid-late 90s, where his peanut butter came from GNC, where it had the little machine, and you dumped the peanuts in, and the machine made an awful noise for 5 minutes and just spat out raw peanut butter.
Yeah.
And now there's a machine next to it, and occasionally as a treat, you would put the thing of peanuts, and then it would disperse honey while it ground, so you had honey-sweetened peanut butter.
Yes, which is delicious.
And it was good. It was. And I don't consider that ultra-processed.
No. But they're talking about the peanut butter you buy in the store where it's 80% garbage oil.
Yeah.
some peanuts, and a bunch of sugar.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at how bad Nutella is, I know that's not peanut butter, but
yeah.
I was shocked. I don't even like it, right? Because they have it's a hazelnut kind of butter. And I'm like, holy moly, all the sugar and all the junk that goes into that. But
yeah.
Yeah, but evidently peanut butter is okay because it's packed high in protein and has good healthy fats. I should say that this article kind of coincides with the article in the U.S. This is a European article.
Yeah.
So their stuff's already better than our stuff when it comes to some of these foods to begin with. So they're saying, you can eat it. It's okay. Whole grain cereal.
Yeah.
So you can have frosted honey wheats, but since it's got wheat or grains, whole grain in it, it's okay. Even though powdered sugar and they add high fructose corn syrup and is made with garbage oils, it's all right.
All right.
Because it's got fiber in it. Fruit yogurt. Yogurt, I mean, you might as well eat ice cream. If you compare yogurt and ice cream together, ice cream, natural ice cream, is healthier than yogurt. Yogurt has a ton of sugar in it.
Yeah.
All of that stuff. If you get the yogurt that tastes good, if you're getting the stuff that tastes like sour cream or whatever, man, it's, wholemeal bread, same thing. They don't care about, the preservatives, oils, emulsifiers, and all that other stuff because it's got fiber and whole grains, so it's better. It's okay. You can eat that too. And then fat-free popcorn. It's like, okay, so have you ever had fat-free popcorn with like the fake cheese and the fake butter and all the fake stuff that's on it?
See, I didn't think of that. When they said like fat-free butter, for some reason I thought of like when I'm on a diet and I uselessly buy it and rarely use it, but that like low fat, low calorie, just popcorn in a bag, and it might have a little bit of sea salt in it.
Yeah.
And I don't really consider that ultra processed.
Oh, it is. That stuff's not, but see, that's not what they're talking about.
Okay.
And so the problem I have with this entire thing is, if I look at this list and go, I'm going to eat all this stuff because it has fiber in it and that's what's good, and it's going to outweigh the bad, that's how you might as well eat that way right now.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you got like diabetes or high blood pressure, or, all this other stuff, all the stuff that Americans are dying from, this is going to keep you right where you are. You'll never be able to get it under control. You'll never be able to fix it.
Yeah.
Because of articles like this that basically say, as long as it's got fiber in it, it outweighs the bad. It outweighs the trans fats, the weird oils like seed oils and stuff like that. It's fine.
Okay.
Even though it's ultra processed, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. This is garbage.
Yeah.
This kind of thing is what's going to keep people unhealthy. It is, because they all has way too much sugar and way too much of the stuff that makes you bad to begin with when it comes to all this. But they're saying that since you got fiber in it or whole grains, you're fine. Like even though grapes, for example, are little sugar bombs, they're all natural. So it's better to eat a grape than to eat, a Snickers candy bar or whatever. If you're diabetic, it's all right. No, they're little sugar bombs. I can't eat grapes. I mean, I could, but my blood sugar is going to spike for a long time.
Yeah. So
it's like, this is, to me, a dangerous article. And I think it was one of the major newspapers. It wasn't New York Times. It was somebody that put out an article a year and a half ago that basically said ultra processed foods are really bad for you. And then here it is, like almost a year and a half later. Wait a minute, ultra processed foods may not be as bad as we thought.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between here and a year and a half, 2 years ago? There isn't. Somebody got paid. They put out a study saying, well, as long as it's got some good stuff in it, it should outweigh the bad. Like, what's the percentage of good stuff in a terrible product to make it safe? You know what I mean? Because it's always the dose that kills you. Because if I just read this and believed it, I'd be like, guess what? I'm not changing anything about my health. I'm going to eat all the crap that I've been eating because it says I can, because it's got fibre in it. That's how you spell fiber.
No, it's not. Stop it.
But, I mean, that just bugs me.
Yeah.
So. But I think we're going to take a second and wrap up the podcast with something that's a little bit better. This is I call this Save the Planet stuff because.
Oh.
No,
okay.
I guess I got to talk about the ghosts. I almost forgot. I thought you might like this because you like to be cold.
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
We're talking about my personality, or are we talking about?
I was just going to leave it where it is. Whatever you need, whatever makes you feel good. So, all right. So under ghost stuff, because we have little sections that we put in the podcast to try to cover some things like, recall stuff. If there's a crazy recall, right? Because I never hear about recalls unless they're on TV, and I'm like, I know there's more recalls than that. Ghost stuff, conspiracy stuff, dystopian news stuff, Bigfoot/cryptid stuff, UFO stuff, weird stuff, animal stuff, and Save the Planet stuff. So under the ghost section, I thought this was kind of neat. And these are paranormal tales from Antarctica.
Yeah. I find it interesting that there could be paranormal tales considering so few people actually live there.
Yes.
I mean, during peak warm season, and by peak warm season, I mean it's 10 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit. That's the warm season. It has barely 3,000 people.
You know why I put this in here?
Why?
Because we watched that show with Jodie Foster, and they were up around doing it. It was like super cold.
That's the Arctic.
What if you're in it? What's the difference between the Arctic and Antarctic? Okay. It's still an icy mess.
Which one do polar bears live in?
I don't care. South Pole. Which one is that one?
The South Pole is the Antarctic.
Okay.
That's not where polar bears live.
Where do
they live in the Arctic.
Wait, let me cue up some Sarah McLachlan music where you say, this polar bear has swam for 400 miles to find an iceberg. Even though they'd swim every day, all day, they always have.
Penguins live almost exclusively in the southern hemisphere.
Those are the ones I'd rather eat.
Which is the Antarctic.
I know, but you're missing why I put it in here. It was a good show, and it was really cold, right? You remember? And we even talked about it.
Yes.
And then you turn it into, you're a moron because you don't know which one you're going to freeze to death in. Let me ask you this question. Which one have you been to?
Neither.
Right. I have been to the Arctic Circle.
Okay.
So.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Did you see any Jodie Fosters or polar bears?
I've seen some Russian submarines, and it was stupid cold, and went through a Navy tradition called the Blue Nose, where basically you're above the Arctic Circle, and you run around the ship getting doused with fire water from the fire hose in freezing conditions, and you get your nose painted blue. Oh. Yeah.
Okay. So the Antarctic, which you have not been to.
Right. Not yet. Give me some time.
Okay.
And guess what? I don't know where the Arctic Wall is either. The one that's separates us from the other 9 civilizations that are outside the ring. I don't know.
That was actually in the news a couple years ago.
Yes, I know.
Yeah.
There's garbage, land of moo, and all that stuff that we don't talk about on the podcast because I don't have 30 years to go down the garbage rabbit holes for it. And I will. I'm like, I got to back out of this.
Garbage rabbit hole.
It is. It's a garbage rabbit hole. When you keep going down a rabbit hole, and it just, instead of going deeper and deeper in, it sort of segments off to branches, and by the time you're done, you haven't scratched not even a foot into a rabbit hole. Holy moly, man. Land of moo.
Okay. Anyways, Antarctica's stark desolate beauty is an endless expanse of ice and snow that feels almost alien. Now, envision that same frozen wilderness haunted by the whispers of the past, ghostly apparitions, eerie noises, and unexplained phenomena. This icy continent, often regarded as the final frontier of human exploration, I disagree there, the ocean is, serves as the backdrop for some of the most chilling paranormal tales. Despite its inhospitable conditions, Antarctica boasts a rich history of teeming with stories of tragic expeditions and mysterious events that continue to captivate our imagination. Okay. So, Antarctica is the coldest, driest, windiest, and highest continent in the world, creating an environment that is as harsh as it is isolating. These extreme conditions have a profound psychological effect on those who brave its icy expanse. So,
let's talk about the paranormal stuff.
Yeah. Well, My thing is, explaining all that explains how I feel about this.
I thought you were just explaining that to me so I'd understand where it is.
So the first one is the spirits of Ross Island. In 1979, there's a tragic plane crash that claimed the lives of 257 people when an Air New Zealand flight struck Mount Erebus.
Yeah, this is crazy.
So visitors to McMurdo Station on Ross Island often report a creepy sense of unease, hearing disembodied voices whispering in the wind, and seeing footprints materialize in the snow with no visible source, as if there's an invisible presence walking beside them. We've heard a similar story in Chaco Canyon.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. These spirits of the crash victims are believed to wander the island, their presence felt by those who venture near the crash site.
I believe there was a gold show where somebody was looking for stuff at McMurdo out that way. And they said the same thing. They brought it up. And then you got like Robert Scott's hut at Cape Evans is another paranormal hotspot. And all this is on paranormaldailynews.com.
Yeah.
So in 1911, for the Terra Nova expedition, but the hut is still there. And people, when they go there, they often describe an overwhelming sense of discomfort when they go into the hut.
Yeah.
And disembodied voices and unexplained footsteps are also commonly reported there.
Yeah.
And they're saying as if the ghost of Scott and his men still linger, replaying the final days of their doomed expedition. Yeah. And there's a memorial nearby. Deception Island is kind of scary, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's an abandoned whaling station with wartime history. It's steeped in a lot of eerie tales. The remote location and treacherous waters add to that because it makes it only accessible to the most determined travelers. Everybody reports this feeling of being watched. Again, disembodied voices, ghostly voices, but also seeing shadowy figures. This island's history as a whaling station is only underscored by the bones scattering along its shores, remnants of a bygone era of, past tragedies, the whaling era that went around the world. So, yeah, it's kind of a creepy island.
This one's kind of creepy, the ghost ship Jenny.
Yeah.
So, legend of the ghost ship Jenny is found frozen in ice with its crew perfectly preserved, and it's one of the most chilling tales of the Antarctic waters. Yeah. So, it was discovered in 1840, and the ship, the Jenny, had been trapped in ice since 1823.
Gosh.
And the sight of the frozen crew, eerily preserved in their final moments, continues to haunt seafarers and adventurers who traverse those waters. That's kind of crazy. And I think the last one we'll talk about is there's two. The ghost of Lenin. Because there's a bust of Lenin.
Yeah.
Vladimir Lenin up there at the Antarctic Pole. And some of the explorers claim to have seen Lenin's ghost haunting this abandoned site. Mm. So, I mean, it's kind of surreal. You're in there and you just see a bust of Vladimir Lenin up there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, in this icy wasteland. But the third man factor. This is something that it's not just Antarctic, it's all over the place. It can happen anywhere. So the third man factor is a phenomenon where explorers report sensing an unknown or unseen presence that's providing guidance and companionship during moments of extreme duress. Mm. And now this was experienced by, figures like Shackleton, who basically suggested a spiritual dimension, right, in the harsh environment of Antarctica. It's like whether it's a psychological coping mechanism or genuine supernatural presence, it often offers comfort and mystery to those facing the continent's challenges. But this is not just up in Antarctica. This is in a lot of places.
So I attribute
a lot of different instances have occurred with.
I attribute the third man factor to any place where you're going to experience extreme isolation, meaning there's no other humans around for a significant distance. I mean, we could have experienced third man factor when we were trapped in San Lorenzo Canyon.
Well, yeah.
I have experienced something similar when I tried to go off the La Luz Trail and try to find these silver trails in the Sandia Mountains. I was so far away from everybody else, and I was just like, is somebody here? And then I felt compelled to go down certain trails, luckily for the good, because it actually took me down the mountain instead of deeper and more eastward, which would have been really bad. But I can't explain why I chose to take those routes.
I think it sort of blends into the idea of guardian angels and everything else, right? So,
But
and just sort of being compelled or directed, or you get that. So yeah. So it's not just Antarctica, but I mean it can happen in jungle, in the desert, anywhere really. I mean you could be overturned in a car off the side of the highway somewhere and still sort of maybe experience that sort of be calm and cool or whatever.
Yeah, but I do think specifically though for third main factor it does weigh heavily on the extreme isolation factor. I think that plays into both the paranormal and the psychological for that condition.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, and, I also think that speaks to the disembodied ghostly voices heard in some of these claims, because that's the one thing about Antarctica and the Arctic. You are so far from everything. It's got to just blow your mind.
Yeah.
So.
Kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Plus wind blowing over ice makes weird sounds.
It does. And the ice is constantly shifting there because it is the tallest part of the world.
Yeah.
The elevation there is more significant, so there's constantly changing geology as well as ice.
So it's pretty big.
Yeah.
So in Saving the Planet stuff, I figured I'd put this in here because this is basically talking about what's considered the largest, oldest tree.
Oh.
So it's the Pando Aspen Forest. It's made up of about 40,000 genetically identical trees.
Oh, yeah.
Or clones, right? So that one tree just keeps cloning itself. And they call them stems. Mm-hmm. But they're all connected at the roots. And collectively, it's the world's largest and oldest tree.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that there was a project, and if you go to ecosystemsound.com, they put hydrophones, which are basically like microphones that you put in the ocean, underwater microphones. They're basically microphones that are, not like the ones we're speaking into. Excuse me, but they put these microphones down there into the root system, and they recorded it, and they're thinking this tree talks.
Yeah.
So it's like a talking tree.
Okay.
And it talks to itself, and so it's kind of like, well, this is kind of crazy. So they recorded it, and you can actually hear it. And it's part of a sort of a ecosystem sound type project. Now, I have some issues with a lot of what they're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that and say, well, me being I was in the Navy and we did, I'm not doing all that. But I thought it was kind of interesting to sort of look, and as I try to reach over here, to sort of hear what it actually sounded like. The Pando tree.
Yeah.
And this Pando tree, when they recorded this and got the most sort of interesting things to hear, it was during like a thunderstorm. So you had thunder and rain and all that stuff, and the idea that the tree was communicating was something that was pretty interesting. So, in July 2022, they recorded some stuff, and I'm gonna play it.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's sort of much of the same. But if you didn't know that was in the ground, you'd think that was in the ocean or something, right?
Yeah.
This is hydrophone. I was like, man, that's pretty crazy. So, yeah, evidently, if you go to like friendsofpanda.org, there's special links where you can kind of identify the recording locations, because it's not just where they captured this. It's like, since it's so big, 40,000 genetically identical clones or stems, right? It's a lot of areas where they've done recordings.
So, and those are in the list for clonal, which is very important because there's this whole thing about trees with verified ages, trees with estimated ages. I'm super like psyched because it's like some of the trees with verified ages that are non-clonal are actually Sierra Nevada, California, northern New Mexico, central Colorado.
Yeah.
So, and because we've actually been through some of these. And then there's the bald cypress in Three Sisters Cove, which is in Black River, North Carolina.
Yep.
So we've actually camped amongst some of the oldest trees in the world.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of them. And Ecosystem Sound has a bunch of like collaborators and projects and stuff like that. And I kind of thought it was just kind of cool to put in there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, evidently once it started raining and the thunderstorm started occurring, it started to make noise.
Yeah.
Like it knew it was coming. So, I don't know.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And the idea of talking trees and walking trees is something I always thought was kind of neat to kind of pay attention to, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So there you go. Well, I think it's time for Pete. No, I've been having allergies for days. Like, just it is what it is. But
yeah,
I get allergies I get allergies all the time, or I have allergies to begin with. But it gets worse at the end of the year.
Yeah,
when things start to die and become, yeah, because wintertime's coming. I think it's coming early.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Everything we talk about, the show notes has links to those articles and those things. Be sure to find us on social media. Pretty apparent, CreepGeeks Pod or CreepGeeks Podcast. Join our Facebook group. We are looking for more interactions, show suggestions, stuff like that. Memes, or just funny things to talk about, funny, strange things to talk about. Join up. Yeah.
There you go. Mm-hmm. That was an impassioned plea. So I think we're going to go ahead and take a second to wrap up the podcast and go eat pizza.
Yeah.
And by go, we got pizza at home. We're not messing around with that stuff anymore. So, all right. Anyway, it is what it is. I do appreciate you taking time to listen to the podcast. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, let us know. But yeah, this has been CreepGeeks Podcast. This is our 320th episode for season 8.
Yeah.
So, very nice. Are you good?
Yep.
All right, I'm good too. All right, so anyway, see you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.